Hi everyone, Donna here with Bookkeeping Made Simple, and today I want to talk a little bit about the onboarding process. When you hire a bookkeeper, an accountant, a payroll specialist, tax preparer, what should you expect? And I'm going to focus mostly on bookkeeping and accounting because that is the biggest part of my practice. And I am also going to talk a little bit about how that relates to the other parts of the profession. Accounting is a very broad profession, but I'm going to focus in on what you as a business owner are going to be interested in, I believe. If I'm off base, please feel free to comment below, let me know. I always do enjoy seeing comments from my viewers and listeners, so I'm always interested to hear what you have to say. I try to bring out lots of good content because I'm a firm believer that providing good content really helps. It helps everybody. It helps me become better at my job. It helps my viewers and listeners become more informed consumers. And, it's just, I think I'm still of the old school of content is king. So, and not the kind of content that's just like, and now that I've told you just enough, let me sell you on my services. Of course, we would love to do your bookkeeping, but we are not a good fit for every single person that comes in, which is fine. So let's start to talk about it a little bit. The number one thing that you need to understand when you're hiring a bookkeeper or an accountant is, what do you want them to do? And this really needs to be clear. I will often spend up to an hour with a prospective client. This isn't even one that's committed, but a prospective client, to talk to them, to find out what they want their business to look like, how we can help, what processes we need to put into place, and honestly, whether or not we're a good fit. We are not always a good fit. Some businesses are big enough that they need someone in-house, and that's fine. We certainly encourage that. Other businesses want to IPO. And so since I am not a CPA and we are not a CPA firm, we might not be the best solution for a company that really wants to IPO unless we decide to work with a CPA firm. Some clients are just not, they're just not a good fit for our personalities. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with any of that. So, but the very first thing is to understand what you are looking for as you're hiring an accountant. The accounting field is very broad. So you can say, I need to hire an accountant, and that could mean anything. So I want to kind of go over some of the services that we offer at Bookkeeping Made Simple. Obviously, number one, top of the line, the name of the business, we offer bookkeeping. Well, what's bookkeeping? We actually just take your transactions and put them into your accounting software. And we do this on a very regular basis, usually a weekly basis. That does a few things. One, it makes sure that your books are never more than a week behind. It also helps us kind of get into a rhythm with our different clients, which is important. So that's what bookkeeping is. We take the transactions, we put them into accounting software. Typically, we use Intuit's QuickBooks Online. And we have reasons for that. Not everybody likes QuickBooks. That's okay. That's why there are other products on the market. But right now, that is what we're using exclusively. We are elite pro advisors with QuickBooks, and so we do a lot with it. And we know the software very, very well. Now, there's another part to it, which is to do the accounting. And accounting is not just entering transactions and presenting financial reports, but it is interpreting, helping you understand, helping to run some analysis on those numbers. So in other words, my bookkeepers that I've hired will go ahead and they will put the transactions into QuickBooks, and they will generate a report. As an accountant, and I will say I have an MBA and I'm working on my master's of accounting right now. As an accountant, I can then go back into that and I can start to figure, what is your return on your investment, business owner? If you put $100,000 into your business, how much should you expect to get back based on your spending habits, based on your goals? You know, what is the return on your investment? How long is it going to take you to get your 100 grand back? Or 10 grand or 1 grand, or however it is, however much you put into the business. Some businesses have a bigger upfront investment and some do not. It's the beauty, by the way, of the internet, is many times you can start a service-based business with very, very little initial outlay. So that's one of the things we want to look for. What is it that our clients are looking for? I will call things certain things. So I may say we offer accounts receivable management or accounts payable management. But that means then that if you need help with receivables or payables, and receivables is the money that is owed to you, payables is the money you need to pay out to other people, then we need to talk about, what does that look like for your company? I have clients that I collect all the invoices and I prepare the checks to be printed. I have had clients where we've usually that's about as far as we go. Well, I've had clients where we've just put together the list of bills that need to be paid and sent it to the client and said, this is what's due this week. But that's something that has to be very clear from the outset, or both parties get very frustrated, is understanding, what services do you need and how do you want that to look? And then as the accounting firm owner, then it's my job to interpret what you're saying and determine if that's something we want to offer. Now, I've even had employees say, how come you don't offer this service or that service? One of the things I do have to juggle is liability. So if I offer this service and one of my employees makes a mistake, I'm at risk. And so that's one of the things that I look at. Or if I offer the service, but the client is not being forthcoming about it and getting frustrated, what is my risk? So that's one of the things that I look at as a business owner. So that's the first thing, get really clear. And if you are talking to me about your bookkeeping, I'm happy to spend the time on the phone with you to get clear. Some of the questions that I will ask as part of my consultation process is things like, what are your goals in your business? What does wealth look like to you? Most people are in business to become wealthy, but wealthy to a starving single mother is not the same as wealthy to someone who's already a multimillionaire. They're going to have different, and that's okay, by the way. I don't have any judgment at all. I've been the starving single mom, and I have a lot of friends who are very, very well off, and I recognize their ideas of success are going to differ. Their goals in their business are going to differ. So some of the other questions I will ask is, what's your exit plan? In other words, do you plan to build this business to sell? Do you plan to build this business to pass on? Do you plan to build this business to throw up your hands in 5 years and give up? These are all things that I need to know. Do you plan to just close it when you're done, or do you want to pass it on? Do you want to sell it? Do you want to set up a board of directors and become a corporation and have it continue after you've decided to get out? That's some of the things that we would need to talk about. And that's part, again, of the initial consultation. The second thing that you have to do to have a positive experience with any accountant, not just us, but any accountant, is to provide the information that they request. What that looks like is if they ask for bank access, this is a big one, by the way. We have office hours. Most accountants do. We work 9 to 5, Monday through Friday, Mountain Time, because we're in Utah. And we will probably always work 9 to 5, Monday through Friday. Mountain Time, until we develop more of a presence on the coasts, in which case we will encompass those, and we'll probably move to like 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. to make sure that we're covering 9 to 5 on both coasts. But we have office hours, and we keep them very strict for a reason. And the top reason is accountants get burned out. Okay. So if you send us bank login information, most banks have temporary passwords that they will send out to their guest users that expire in 24 hours. Friday at 3 p.m. or 4 p.m. is not the time to be setting up bank access. Monday morning is a great time to do it. Tuesday morning, Thursday afternoon, but not Friday. I had one client that I liked her, and I really wanted to do a great job with her. And I kept going back to her saying, you sent this to me at 4:50 on Friday, and we close at 5. I didn't even see it in my email until Monday. All the passwords are expired. And she got frustrated. And I was frustrated with her because I was like, it says ahead of time, I told you they expire in 24 hours. So you have to make sure that the next 24 hours are a business day. You can't do this on the weekend. So that's one of the things. You have to make sure that you're getting bank login information, bank statements, whatever it is that your accountant is asking for needs to be gotten to them in a timely manner. There are a couple of ways that people get information to us. One way is through email, depending on the sensitivity. Another way is we do have a server where we create folders for our clients. We provide them a link. It works for them. We have nothing to do with that other than providing the link. So they can then log in, upload their files, and we'll have them. Things stay secure. That's kind of our preferred method, but that has to be happening on a regular basis. So in other words, some of my clients over the years have expected to see accounting and bookkeeping as a set it and forget it type of a relationship. It does not work that way. Okay, we have to communicate, and that is just absolutely critical. We have to communicate. We need to communicate with the client. We need to communicate. The client needs to communicate with us. So that is one of the huge things. You compile the documents, you get them to us, you provide us with guest access to the bank, which, by the way, does not allow us to do anything with your money except view it and see copies of the checks, pull statements, things like that. And I always explain, what we need and why we need it. But we can't do anything without one, knowing exactly what the client is expecting of us, two, putting those expectations into writing. So in other words, I have typically in the past had rather vague contracts. Moving forward, they're going to be very, very detailed, as in, this is exactly what we're going to do. And those are subject to change, but that has to be in writing. And the reason for that is to try to avoid misunderstandings. I found that simply by avoiding misunderstandings just makes things so much easier. I don't think any of my clients have ever planned to be frustrated, but if there's misunderstandings, it leads to frustration on both sides. Number 3 would be, make sure your accountant is completely in the loop. So what I mean by that is, if you are wanting them to create a debt payoff plan, which I've done for clients and I'm still doing for a client, then you need to be talking to them about exactly how bad is your financial situation. Many times I will have clients put all this into a spreadsheet and provide it to us, not only because we need to put it into QuickBooks, because we do. We need to know every single liability, every single asset, all of that we need to know. And it's not just so that we can say, oh, it's in QuickBooks, but it's also an exercise for the client to realize where they really are. Many times the clients have no idea. I do have a client that I think very highly of them, but they are making every mistake in the book. And I'm really concerned about them. I'm like taking it personally now. I'm really concerned about them. I'm concerned about their marriages. I'm concerned about, whether they're going to be able to stay in business, because they are just spending and spending and spending, and they don't have a plan. So, like I said at the beginning, get very clear with your accountant about what you need. And listen to what the accountant has to say back. So there's a lot, by the way, there's a lot I can tell about people by looking at their books. There's a lot I can tell about people just by looking at their checking account or their credit cards. I can tell a ton, including what their true priorities are. What do you mean by that, Donna? Well, that means that if you tell me that your priority is integrity, for example, or saving. Let's say you say, I want to buy a house, I want to have this much money in the bank, I need help all the way through. What do I do? And I look at it and I start to see a lot of credit card spending. That's going to tell me that either you don't know how to manage money, which we will be able to help you with, or that your priorities are different from what you're telling us. And I usually tell the priorities by the spending habits. I used to be able to say that I could tell if a business was getting ready to go under because I could tell when the spouse had the business card. Okay, I've seen it. I've seen businesses getting ready to go under, and the wife, in this case, had the business debit card and was going through the mall, store by store, and I could almost trace it store by store. She was on a shopping spree to spend the rest of the business money. So that's something that I can tell right out the gate. Spending habits will tell me how the business is really doing. Because our job is really not to manage your finances for you, but to manage it, to help you manage it better. So that's one of the things that I want my clients to do, is to really come up with every asset they have and every liability they have. What are their debts? How many credit cards do they have really, particularly for the business? So in my case, I have credit cards that are just personal. They're in my name. I have credit cards that are in my business's name. And it's only the business cards that should show up on my balance sheet. But if I have a client whose everything is commingled, it becomes much more difficult to help them manage their business spending. And it becomes difficult to help them dig themselves out of whatever hole that they're in. I will tell you, it's almost always possible. Okay? So if you're in a hole. So number one, get very, very clear with your accountant about what services they offer, what services you need, and what your expectations are. And number two, make sure that you are providing the information they ask for in a timely fashion. And again, Friday afternoon is not a good time to start sending bank authorizations. You want to do that on a Monday, or you want to do that during the week or early in the day because of the time limitations. Again, most banks will send a temporary passcode when you set up a guest user. Those codes typically expire in 24 hours. So that's something we like to do on an onboarding call. We will actually get on the phone and walk you through what are your bank accounts, what are your credit card accounts. This is how we want to receive the information. This is what we want you to do. And then do what your accountant asks you to do. And then start talking to them about the basics of accounting. Most people, okay, do not understand accounting reports. And that's fine. It I tell people all the time, it took me a degree, a full 4-year degree to understand, to really understand the 3 main accounting reports: the profit and loss or income statement, the balance sheet, and the statement of cash flows. I spent 4 years studying that. I do not expect my clients to pick it up in 4 minutes. It's just not going to happen. But we do expect you to have a grasp, a general idea of what it is that we're doing. We don't expect anyone to be experts at it. That's our job. But to have a clue, Okay. Then the next, number 4, would be stay out of their way. Okay. One of my recent clients that didn't stay with us for very long, and I think the world of these clients, I really do. The office manager kept trying to get into QuickBooks and make changes. And what she did not understand was that I could see the changes that she was making and that she was the one making them. So it was a complicated accounting situation. I spent many, many, many hours on it. I personally, and I never work on bookkeeping clients anymore, but I spent a lot of time with this client trying to get their books in order. They had spent a lot of time with the same bookkeeper. There was a huge, huge mess, and there was trust accounting involved. She got in there and started making changes, and I was like, no, please don't do that. She got offended and took the business away. But that is something that you really need to be communicating with your accountant about. If you want to go into QuickBooks and start making, and I don't mean like creating an invoice, I mean changing the accounts, you need to talk to the accountant about that. They know where those are supposed to be, how they should be handled. They know the law behind it. And I expect that this company is probably not, they've been in business forever, but I don't expect them to be in business terribly much longer, because the administrative assistant was taking on things that she needed to have nothing to do with. And that can make a huge positive or negative impact in your relationship with your accountant. Set your expectations. I touched on this a little bit before, but set your expectations and make sure they are communicated early, frequently, and timely. Now, when I say communicated, I do mean in a professional manner. So I will send my clients an engagement letter, and it will outline what we're going to do. And like I said, I'm going to get much more granular on this because of the misunderstandings that we've had. But if that's not exactly what you want, if those aren't the services, if you want, if you think there needs to be more detail there, absolutely reach back out. If you feel like something is being missed, reach back out and talk to them. Hey, this is something that you put in the agreement, and I don't know what this means. I'm expecting we'll take accounts payable. You said accounts payable management. I'm expecting you to pay the bills. And if I come back and could then come back and say, well, we don't pay the bills for you. That's not a service we offer, but we can do this, this, and this. We can prepare them to be ready to go. We can prepare the checks to be printed. We can do this. And then that minimizes the work that you have to do. You just have to print the checks and sign them. We are huge, by the way, on segregation of duties. And the reason for that is to try to prevent fraud, both inside our own business and inside our clients' businesses. So if we know we're the ones that are supposed to be preparing the checks, getting them ready to be printed, and the client is going to print them in their office and sign them, then we know that, or then I know my bookkeepers can't do anything that touches the client's money. So they can prepare payables to go out to be paid via check, or they can even pay them online with a written authorization from the client. And the reason, again, we do this is to minimize the risk of fraud. There's a risk of fraud inside every company. So bookkeeping made simple still has a risk. I try to keep that as minimal as possible. All of my clients have a risk of fraud occurring in their company. We want that to be as minimal as we can possibly get it. We can't bring it to zero, but we can get it as close as we possibly can to zero risk of fraud. So, if you're a client and you're saying, I want you to do my accounts payable, then my job then is to go back over and say, what does that look like to you? Okay, because I really want this to be clear for myself and for my clients and for my bookkeepers. So you really want to make sure that you're on the same page. So the next one would be to be organized. And I don't expect, I honestly don't expect any of my clients to be organized, but be organized enough. So what does that look like? Let me go ahead and ask. Well, that looks like getting us information when we ask for it. That looks like, ooh, I want to keep my receipts. They provided a folder for me to put my receipts in, whether it's a virtual folder in the cloud, or it's an actual physical folder for you to shove your receipts in. Use it, whichever one. Make sure you're not commingling funds. That creates a ton of problems. And just basically follow your accountant's advice. That's what you hired them for. Next one. Set up a meeting or phone call with any questions or concerns you have. This one's critical. And this is one, and I'm going to talk about this a little bit more in depth, but you should be talking to your bookkeeper or accountant once a quarter at the minimum. In other words, if you have questions, reach out to us, set up an appointment, let us take some time to go over and answer your questions. We don't want you to be frustrated. It's bookkeeping made simple, not bookkeeping made complicated. Don't complicate it. We want it to be as simple as possible for you, but that does mean that we have to be on the same page. And if you don't feel like we're on the same page, then reach out. Let's get it discussed, put into writing, and make sure that we are. Okay. And that kind of goes both ways, because not only do we need to be on the same page as our client, but our client needs to be on the same, we need to have the same expectations. And so if you're hearing words that you think mean one thing and it looks like your accountant might mean something else, then definitely reach out and say, no, buy this, buy AR management. Did you mean that you were going to call my customers for me? Or did you mean that you're just going to provide me with a collections list? And let's get on the same page. Now, the other reason to have frequent meetings with your accountant is to start looking over your financial situation. How is it changing? In 2020, many of my clients went out of business. In 2021, many of them came back and were able to resume. New clients started to come on. And that was a very interesting situation. In 2023, I have clients that their own financial situation is evolving, and we need to be right there. So I have one client that, actually I have a few clients that have businesses up for sale. And that is something to start talking to your accountant about as soon as the idea so much as crosses your mind. Why? Because if you proceed with the sale, we can help you create a valuation for your entity. We have a top-notch business attorney that we work with very frequently who can help you with the sale at a reasonable price. She's not interested in gouging anybody. She does a fantastic job, and we highly recommend her. And I've been excited to be able to recommend her to people on the East Coast as well, because she's admitted to the bar in Connecticut and New York. But we have a couple of very competent business attorneys that we like to work with who can help you structure the deal. If we know ahead of time that this is what you're working towards and this is what you need, we can start. We never, ever, ever want to try to flip someone from cash to accrual in a day. That's a lot of work. If we know ahead of time from the day that you engage us that my end goal is to sell this business and this is what, then we know what needs to happen. We can start talking to you about landed costs. We can start talking to you about accrual versus cash. We can start having those conversations very, very early on in the process. The earlier we know about it, the easier it will be. Okay. Ask for advice about money matters. Please do. Yes, absolutely. If you feel like you're drowning in debt, reach out to your accountant. This is what we're here for. Okay. We don't want to see any of our clients go under. We don't ever want to see a client go under. I have watched it happen, but I don't like it. So you want to make sure that you are keeping them in the loop very much. And if you start to have financial issues, if you are struggling to pay your bills, reach out to your accountant and say, can you help me? Understand there may be an extra fee involved, or the accountant may say, if you're struggling that hard, I will either waive, and I've done this, I don't waive my fees, but I will postpone them and put them to the back. So I'll kind of put that on the side. I will stretch things out so that things are as easy for my clients as possible. I'm not here to put anyone out of business because they have to pay my fees on top of everything else. My job is to help my clients become financially solvent. And while we do charge for that, if you're really in that bad of a financial situation, absolutely reach out. And there are some free resources we can point you to. There are some outstanding, things we can do to help you that isn't going to cost you anything. There are more in-depth solutions that are going to cost you a pretty penny, but we can help you get started so you can start to get your nose above water very early. Again, if you're not communicating, if you are circling the drain, if you feel like you're drowning in debt and you are not cluing your accountant in, even if it really is, I feel like I'm drowning in debt, just reach out to us, set up a meeting, let's talk, and let's see what we can do to help you. Next, be open-minded when it comes to suggestions from your accountant. People are very interesting when it comes to money. Money is a very, very loaded concept. People associate money with power, with control, with freedom, with autonomy, with I go back to control. People will use money to control their significant other. People will use money to have a sense of security. Money is never just money. Okay, so not even for me, not for my clients. When I am going through a client's books, I start to take it very personally. And that's because if I don't care about the client, I won't even bring them on as a client. So if I don't feel like they're a good match, because it has to be a relationship. But I really want to make sure that my clients' needs are being addressed. So if I do start to see the drain circling, or if one of my bookkeepers starts reaching out and saying they've taken out another loan, Donna, usually it comes to me as, how do I book this loan? So I do like to have frequent meetings with my clients so that these money issues can come to the surface. Now, the other half of it is I can give all the advice in the world. And I have had people disregard my advice, evidently, because I was a woman, I'm not sure. But you disregard that at your own risk. So I can say, you need to get rid of this, and this expense. And that will start to improve your financial. You need to pay this loan off first. But at the same time, we don't pay the loans. We don't pay the bills. We can discuss it. We can help you, but we don't take over your finances. We just record them, provide advice, but we still expect the client to pay the bills. And that can come loaded with a lot of interesting energy. Like I said, money is never just money. Money is not just a medium of exchange. Technically it is, but honestly, there is an energy to money that a lot of people are afraid of it. Some people are overwhelmed by it. Again, it's associated with power, control, security, freedom. There's a lot of triggering things that go on when it comes to money. And part of our job, as I view it, is not just to help you with your money, but to help you clear any blocks that come with money. What do I mean by that? When I started this business, I was a struggling single mom, and that was definitely my identity, struggling single mom. And I thought that in order to be successful, I had to struggle. It turns out that I had been programmed that way. So for whatever reason, I associated struggling with success. And that does not have to be the way it is. Once I figured out that success could be easy, that I didn't have to struggle to be successful, that I didn't have to work 50, 60, 70-hour weeks to be successful, my business became more successful. So there's some blocks, there's some things that can happen, but definitely, one, be willing to accept your accountant's advice. We have seen it all. It should be as simple as going to the doctor. You can go into the doctor with the most embarrassing medical problem in the world, and I promise you, they've seen it, and they don't think anything of it. We feel the same way. We take it a little bit personally because we care about our clients and we want them to succeed. But just like going to the doctor, there's not a financial situation that we have not seen. And as I've told people, I have seen some of the worst books in Utah. You probably don't have them. If you have any attempt at trying to make sure that your business is running well, then you don't have the worst books in Utah. I've seen it. I've seen them. So that's something to be aware of. Next, develop a custom plan. So part of all of the onboarding process is to talk about where your business is financially, where you are individually financially, where you want to go, and then to create a map to get there. Some people are very hands-on on their business and they like it that way. So they are the kind that want to do everything themselves. Other people want to take a step back, or they are preparing their business for sale, and they are going to be treated differently. So we need to know where you are. In other words, are you comfortable with your level of financial success so far? And if not, what does it look like for you to feel like you're wealthy? Again, money has different meanings to different people. And it's a very, very loaded term. But if we understand what's going on kind of behind the scenes, and that does take some work, then we can help you achieve your goals. But this does take a lot of work and a lot of clarity, and probably a lot of meetings in the beginning. Number, I don't know what number I'm on. Review your progress and make changes as needed. Okay. This is where some of our clients struggle with this. And it also goes with have regular meetings, either virtually or in person. I encourage my clients to have at least a quarterly meeting with us, and not just with us, with me as the accountant. The people on my staff are bookkeepers. They have an accounting background, but they are not as in-depth as some other people on staff. And I keep trying to hire more, better talent, but the people that I have are very, very good at being bookkeepers. But I also want my clients to check in with someone besides their regular bookkeeper. So we want to have quarterly reviews. This is when it's a great time to bring up life changes. The business has been humming along, but now I want to buy a house. That's something we need to know. You could even say, I can take the hit on the taxes so long as the tax return shows what I'm looking for. And some people will make that decision. They may say, I want to buy a house, so I need to have $20,000 in savings, let's say. And that's just a round number, has nothing to do with the actual cost of the house. We're 20% down. Well, okay, 20% down, how big of a house do you want to buy? We need to start asking those questions. And that is part of the quarterly review. Should take about an hour with me. We want to know what life changes. We're going to have another baby. Okay, well, how is that going to affect your goals? Well, now I want to buy a house. I need to put aside a college fund. These are all things to talk to your accountant about. I want to sell my business in order to retire, would be something to talk to your accountant about very early on. Typically, I find out about it from the client after the fact, and I don't like that. Or simply, my goals for my business have changed. I've decided not to sell it. I'm going to leave it to my heirs. Great. Then we need to start creating a succession plan. So whatever it is, talk to your accountant about it frequently. We love to get emails from our clients. We love to hear from our clients, but that quarterly review, and it could be something as simple as, I don't like the person you have doing my books. That's fine. I will reassign them. By the way, we switch bookkeepers about every quarter. So if you have a bookkeeper that you've been working with, the beginning of the quarter, you're going to move to somebody else, and that is to minimize the risk of fraud. Also to make sure that everybody knows what's going on with all the clients so that we can all answer everybody's questions. And then finally, sign what you need to sign, but make sure that you read your agreements and your contracts. So typically, the problems that I have with clients are that they did not read the agreement. The agreement specifically says not only that we're going to provide the services, but it also gives client obligations. So we can't provide services if you don't provide the information, for example. Make sure you read and fully understand anything you sign, but you will have to have things in writing for us to be able to move forward with providing services. That is the brief overview. Brief. There's nothing brief about that, but that is the overview of what the onboarding process looks like. And that is just a surface level one. Some of the other things that we do look into are, what kind of process and procedures do you have? What kind of key performance indicators are you looking for? How do you know if you're successful? Those are some of the things that I'm going to be asking. When success comes, how do you know you've reached it? What is your end goal? Is it $15 million in a bank account somewhere? Is it $2 million in a retirement account? Do you want to work till you die? Some people do. Do you want to sell? Do you want to pass? All these things are things that we need to know, and we need to know frequently, and we need to recalibrate frequently, because it's very easy for both us and the client to become complacent. And if that happens, then nobody's satisfied. Our goal is to be to make sure our clients are very satisfied with this. But again, I would say, make sure things are absolutely crystal clear. And so that would mean when you have a meeting with your bookkeeper or your accountant, follow it up with an email if they don't. I try to train everyone to follow up with an email, write up what the meeting was about, send it to the client so that they can have a chance to read it through and say, oh, that's not what I said. Or, oh, yep, that's perfect. That is exactly what we agreed to. Because, like I said, most problems that I have come across as an accountant with a client have been 100% the result of miscommunication. So the more we can do to set these expectations, to make sure everything is managed well, the better off everybody is going to be. So to go back over it, number one, understand what it is your accountant is offering and what services you require. Number two, put together any documentation or access that they ask for. There's different ways to do that. Make sure you're clear on that. Number three, make sure you and your accountant are on the same page with regards to expectations. This can take a while, honestly. And that includes things like, what does success look like? What does wealth look like? What are the key performance indicators or KPIs you're looking for? What do you expect the accountant to do? What do you expect the bookkeeper to do? And what do you expect to do yourself? We need to know all of that. That's part of your expectations. Number four, stay at least somewhat organized. And to us, that does mean put everything together so we can get it, whether that's virtually through our online system or physically with a physical envelope. We have solutions for you. Number five, make sure you are setting up meetings and phone calls to discuss any questions or concerns you have very early on. Don't let these things kind of pile up, but make sure that you are communicating frequently. Number six, ask for advice. We're happy to provide it. Number seven, be open to whatever suggestions your accountant makes. We have seen it all. We can help you become financially successful. Number eight, develop a plan that's customized to your needs. It could be a debt reduction plan. It could be a different spending plan. It could be a tax avoidance plan. Evading taxes is illegal. Avoiding taxes is your duty, I think. Review your progress and make changes as needed. That's a huge one, and a lot of people miss it. But that's what the quarterly reviews are for. Have regular communication with your client. Again, with your accountant. So that, again, we like to see monthly to quarterly reviews. And please don't hesitate to reach out. We would rather deal with things before they become a frustration. And lastly, make sure you've read, understood, and signed any paperwork required to move forward. And with that rather long meeting, that is how the onboarding process works. It is different for each client, but that is in general how it works. And we are looking forward to being able to help you with your business. Thanks, and we're looking forward to talking to you soon.